Dame Caroline Dinenage must resign. Now, this is the midwit in Parliament, the one who heads up the Culture, Media and Sport Committee, who has taken it upon herself to demand that Russell Brand cannot earn any income because he's been accused of something.
Yes.
Yeah. Accused.
Yes,
Very
accused.
big word.
Yes, there is no police investigation at this point. But the Times and Channel 4 have said that he's done bad things, and therefore his ability to earn in this country must be removed. Not the way that we're supposed to do things.
No, but hasn't Russell Brand admitted and put all this out in public for years, actually?
Well, I mean, he made it a main feature of his stand-up routine, and he wrote a book about it. So he's been reasonably open about his sort of exploits at the past.
Yeah.
Which gives us, this is the letter that she sent out. She's actually sent out a whole bunch of these different letters, but this one is that's the one to Rumble. Where is she? So she's saying the Culture, Media and Sport Committee is raising questions with broadcasters and production companies who previously employed Mr. Brand to examine both the culture of the industry and blah blah blah. Where's the meaty bit? Oh yes. While we recognise that Rumble is not a creator of the content published by Mr. Brand, we are concerned that he may be able to profit from his content on the platform. We would be grateful if you could confirm whether Mr. Brand is able to monetize his content, including his videos relating to these serious allegations against him. If so, we would like to know whether Rumble intends to join YouTube in suspending Mr. Brand's ability to earn money on the platform.
It's just shocking, isn't it?
It is pretty outrageous because in this country you are supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, and actually, even if you're guilty, there is still no provision that says that you can't earn in this country.
No, exactly.
Loads and loads of people have been to jail, convicted of serious crimes, and then they come out and they earn money.
Yeah,
there is nothing again. But let alone, somebody who's not even under police investigation.
Yeah.
This is just a couple of allegations at this point.
Hasn't Bronson written a book and earned money from it while still in prison?
Loads of people have. Yeah, loads of people have written books. Yeah, while in prison and had that published. I don't know what happens to the money. I mean, presumably it racks up waiting for them on the other side. But I mean, that is the only way that the government can stop you earning money is to have you in prison.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like Brand. I've never liked Brand.
I'm not a fan myself. No.
And I think he's got the morals of an alley cat. Having said that, these are accusations. It's ridiculous that somebody can be
penalised.
Well, demonetized,
and more to the point, even if he's guilty of them, unless he's actually in jail, it's not the role of government to stop you earning. Even if you're under investigation, even if you're guilty, the only thing that there is the Proceeds of Crime Act. So if you're a drug dealer and you've bought a Mercedes or whatever with the proceeds of your crime, that can be taken away from you.
Yeah.
And that must be what she's thinking. And she's thinking that the content he puts out is somehow the crime, and that's what must be penalised. Well, the content he puts out isn't him about him having sex.
No.
The content that he puts out is critical of the government.
Yes.
So in her mind, she's done the mental calculation. The crime is the content that he puts out, the dissident content.
Yeah. And it's funny that because yesterday I was reading in the Express that a man has got £86,000 in the bank. He's defrauded the Social Security of 28 grand, and he's got some community order, but he's not been asked to pay the money back. So there's one law for one and one law for another.
And absolutely the case. So this is the thing. I think a lot of people are having the difficulty with this is they can't see beyond the personality. So this is the pushback that I've had whenever I've talked about this. People are saying, "Oh, you're just a Brand sycophant," or "You just." I'm not a Brand, and you've said yourself, you're not a fan of Brand either.
Not at all.
None of us here particularly like Brand. I mean, I like some of his messaging lately, but I don't particularly like him. For who he is and what he's done. I don't like any of that. But the pushback you always get is, okay, no, you're just defending Brand. No, it is the principle that matters.
Yeah.
And it is obviously a case of going after him because of the messaging that he put out. So to give you an example, let's have a look at one case I found this morning. So this is a BBC man. Surprising how often BBC men come up in this. This is a story from this morning of a BBC guy who is now being convicted of, and it is quite horrific, sexually torturing 60 dogs.
Well-
and they all died in the process, and he filmed himself doing this. And absolutely disgusting individual. And this is just one. I mean, this is just an example that I picked from the BBC website today.
Yeah.
Right.
But they're probably taking lessons from the statue outside the BBC, Eric Gill, because he was had fun with his animals as well, didn't he?
Yeah, there's definitely something about the BBC that prompts this sort of thing. But there was no. She didn't write any letters.
No.
To the BBC, and I think National Geographic was his other employer.
Yeah.
She didn't write any letters to the BBC, National Geographic, and saying, "Look, this man has been, a year ago, because he's been convicted now." He didn't write any letters saying, "Okay, close this man down, stop him from earning." So it is clearly not about the crime.
No,
it's about the fact that Brand, because the story was big enough, it popped up on the radar of a midwit like Caroline Dinenage. And so she thought, I'm leaning into the narrative here, and I'm going to put him down for this one. That's clearly what it was. And then you've got to ask, okay, well, why was he in the narrative in the first place?
Yeah. I mean, this is clearly an overreach by government in trying to be the nanny state.
Yeah.
If Brand would have been in Wales, he'd have been incarcerated by now, wouldn't he?
Yes.
Even without any evidence.
I can imagine.
It is a police state in Wales, without a doubt.
Yeah, all the conventions that we used to have are breaking down. A friend of the show who came on a few weeks ago, who YouTubes under the name Academic Agent, put out a good video on this. Let's see if we can play that now. Have we got the
Now the thing is that Russell Brand hasn't been charged with any crime. At this point, he is innocent until proven guilty under the rule of law. And Dame Carolyn Dinenage, as the chair of the Culture, Media and Sports Committee, has completely violated what is expected of her office and undermined the rule of law in this country. As my good buddy Carl Benjamin pointed out, she's violated one of the few clauses of the Magna Carta which are still in effect, which is that an Englishman's property may not be arbitrarily seized or stripped from him without the lawful judgment of his peers. She must resign or be fired immediately. And I agree with this.
Yeah, he's absolutely right.
Spot on. Absolutely spot on. And these sorts of things are really important to society as a whole. When you can be selective with whose messaging is going out, who's going to be dealt with for crimes that haven't yet been proven, it's very selective.
There needs to be a process. Let's get there we go. There's Carl's tweet. He put that. It's clear that Caroline Dinenage must resign for pressuring Rumble, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter to demonetize Russell Brand. It is unacceptable in a democracy that any politician should leverage state power against a private citizen to bring about their ruin. Absolutely right. Speaking of Carl, he's actually on holiday at the moment, which is why we've hacked the system, and we've got a code going, which is Sargon with an E, because that's very clever, you see, because he's gone on holiday. Yeah, very clever. And so while he's gone on holiday, you type the code Sargon into the website, and you will be able to get a half price subscription for the next 3 months, any tier, including gold. So do sign up for that. What else? Oh yeah, this is Lee Hurst. I don't think we've had Lee on the show yet, but he's very welcome to come on. Caroline Dinenage wants Russell Brand to not be able to earn a living, even though he has not yet been charged with an offence, while she is comforted by the knowledge that as an MP she can still receive her salary even if she was in prison.
Yes.
The irony.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, the only thing I can say about Caroline is that she is the MP for Gosport. And without the Royal Navy, there'd still be, the gene pool is very, very thin down there.
Gosport is very close to me. I'm sort of down Southampton way, but those of us in Southampton, we understand what you're dealing with in Portsmouth and Gosport. My understanding was that back in the 1700s, that the prostitutes were too poxy to earn a living in London would go down to Portsmouth, and I think that explains the gene pool of Portsmouth and surrounding areas like Gosport. all of us Southamptoners know that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, but I think you open your social media, you go on Facebook, the first thing you see is a story about Russell Brand. It's someone coming out to say, to condemn him, but it's never from a direct source. It's always someone's heard this, someone's heard that, someone's saying this. No, there's nobody actually coming out with it, putting their name to it and saying it's them. It's all hidden anonymous.
Yeah, and why would the accusers actually go to Channel 4 first? That's it's a bit like Monica Lewinsky putting her dress in the fridge for 17 years.
I made that comment, and a lot of people responded to me and pointed out to that they didn't even do that. That the Times and the Channel 4 went to them and said, "Is there anything you'd like to tell us about Russell Brand? You can have your 5 minutes of fame if you'd like, and anything you'd like to get off your chest." And Russell was apparently aware of this going on for quite some time because a lot of people were getting in touch with him saying, "Do you know I've had a journalist asking me for dirt on you?" And I told them to clear off. But obviously, if you is it 1,000 or 10,000 women he's supposed to have slept with? I don't know.
Over 1,000, I think. Yeah.
Oh, 11,000. My producer was fact checked. 11,000. Would you? I don't know.
11,000.
Remember? Does he have a clicker or something?
Yeah, you must do. But and we know the way he used to be, and how he used to act and behave. But what we got to remember is this was enabled by the BBC and Channel 4, and whereas what he was doing may be immoral, it's not illegal. If girls are voluntarily going into their hero's dressing room and doing whatever.
It was apparently that while he was because there'd apparently a show at Channel 4. I haven't watched any TV for decades and decades, but apparently he had a show and he would get if he saw a girl he liked in the audience, he would go and get them to give him their number or whatever, or bring them over.
Yeah.
The thing is, they still said, "Yep, all right, I'd like to do that." And I lived in London for a long time, and for a good long while. Every young woman you saw on the tube, well, not everyone, but lots of them, we sat there reading the bloody Russell Brand book.
Yes, yeah.
So, the guy obviously had some sort of connection with the fairer sex.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard that in your ear. 1.5 a day.
Yeah.
Good God.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. But it's exactly that. It was from what we've seen from previous, and it was consensual. Yeah. And he had that sort of rock star sort of vibe around him, and he had his groupies that were, they didn't care about anything other than they get in a night with Russell Brand. My sister went to see him, I can't remember where, but at the end of his show, he said, if any of you ladies want to come back to the hotel room with me, I'm going to be in the bar after the show, and if it's something you're not really experienced in, come along and we'll teach you. So he's always been very open about it, and it's I suppose when you've got groupies. And you're a bit of a sex addict.
Yes.
And you can just say, anybody want some? And then they'll come flooding. You're going to do it, aren't you?
Yes.
But again, it's the same, like you said there, about the journalists approaching people. It's the same sort of thing we've seen with Andrew Tate.
Good point. After this podcast, I will be in the leaky tap down the far end of Swindon. So if any of our podcast viewers wants to, come and try their luck with me, if they're lovely lassies, that's your opportunity.
There you go.
Fair play to him. I suppose if it works, I mean, I'm not commending that sort of behaviour, but the fact is, it is still a consensual thing, and it is still a tiny minority. Let's call up this this tweet. This guy sort of unpacks it quite well. Wilco 115. He points out the presumption of innocence. Before anyone is convicted in a court of law, they are presumed innocent. An MP judging a case would be viewed as an attempt to influence public opinion and possibly the outcome of any legal proceedings. The role of a parliamentary committee is to scrutinise government policy and administration. They often make recommendations based on their inquiries, directly intervening in specific private sector decisions or prejudging individual cases is well beyond their usual remit. Even if he was investigated, even if he was convicted, then it is still wrong for a government to remove somebody's abilities to earn unless they're actually in prison.
Well, not that I like the EU, but under human rights, you've got the right to work.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I go back to Magna Carta.
Yeah. Even if you have been criticising the government.
Yeah.
Yes. What have I got? Yeah. I also wanted to talk about Big Brother Watch. Now, this is an organisation which I think is more or less on our side. I think I like these guys. So I'm not, and I hate punching right or punching within the sort of sphere of people who are on our side of the freedom. So I'm not going to criticise them too much, but I am going to bring up a disagreement that I had with the boss of this place on Twitter. Now that I think these are good guys. I did notice that the George Soros's open Society is one of their funders. That may or may not mean anything. I'm not too sure. But we got Silky's did a who's the boss of this did a thread on this and said that she criticised censorship whenever it happens. But the government did not try and censor Russell Brand. So look, I'm not gonna start bashing Big Brother Watch, because, like I said, I think they're pretty much on our side. But I did want to get into this line of reasoning, because there's the low definition view of this, which is if you've got a problem with this, you're just a Russell Brand sycophant. Now that's obviously nonsense. That's a very low IQ, very low resolution take. I also want to take on what I think is the ultra granular view that Silky is putting across here. So, she says in this tweet thread, we'd led the campaign against the surveillance and censorship powers in the online safety bill. Few people care about this huge extension of online surveillance and censorship more than me, and I'm furious that Brand is misrepresenting and exploiting the issue. He serves only himself. Well, I don't disagree that he serves himself. I mean, that kind of is his agenda, but I think there was a genuine issue here. She goes on to say further down that she doesn't have a good faith interpretation of that letter from Caroline Dinenage. She thinks it was written in bad faith, it was extremely ill-judged and a terrible overreach. So she's definitely against it.
Yes.
But none of it makes it government censorship. And then she goes on in comments to go and explain that, that she's not a government official, she's just an MP. My response, because I think this is important and worth responding to, this line of thinking, is that what happened here is we got two government-funded media groups who went after Brand. Now, people are going to say, oh, well, actually, they're not government. Well, actually, no, they are. Channel 4 gets a lot of its money from the government. And the Times, their circulation has collapsed. Where they're getting their money from? Advertisers. Who's the biggest advertiser? It's government, and it has been that way since COVID. So both of these are government-funded media organisations, right? So that part of the regime goes after him with an investigation, and they create this story by going out and speaking to enough women until they find something that looks good enough to present. Okay, then you get a committee chair on House of Commons paper using a clear implicit threat to destroy his income, and she gets no rebuke for that, right? And it was obviously meant. It was obvious what she meant by that. I mean, she didn't actually say demonetize him. She said that, we're extremely concerned that he hasn't been demonetized or something like that. And do you intend to do it?
Yes,
like YouTube already have.
Yes.
So what you've essentially got is, I think Silky is fallen into the trap of being overly granular and saying, okay, well, this particular person is just the head of a committee, and it's just an MP, and therefore it doesn't matter.
It does, because they're giving the vibes out that what that particular committee are thinking. And so other potential investors to Brand might say, do we really want another battle?
So Rumble and all of those other people are supposed to look at this, and they're supposed to see the House of Commons heading the paper. And they're supposed to say, okay, somebody with connections clearly wants this guy off the platform.
Correct.
It's now a business risk to keep him on. I'm always reminded of, there was an episode, did you ever watch The Sopranos?
Yes.
There was one episode of The Sopranos where Tony Soprano's wife, I think she's trying to get her daughter into a good school or something like that. And she goes along and she sort of heavily implies that it would be in your best interest to let this kid into this school, right? Now, you could say, well, hang on a minute. She's not actually a mob boss. Right? She just knows a mob boss, right? So actually, there's no threat there, because that's exactly what Caroline Dinenage is doing here. So one head of the so that you've got the Westminster bubble, the heads of the Hydra, one of which is a lot of media funding going into bringing this guy down. Another one is, the head of the Hydra that actually has all of these powers and the online safety bill. They've just got that through, and they've got vast scope to bring you down. And yet another head of the Hydra is saying, we're deeply concerned about this guy demonetizing like these other people had. And you're dealing with it. And okay, yes, it is separate heads of the Hydra.
But
it's the same legs and feet attached to the bottom of this thing.
And no doubt that would have been discussed. That letter would have been written, she would have been advised on what to say, and no doubt that would have been her get out of clothes. It's not saying, can you do this? It's asking a question, but it's a veiled threat. It is that sort of thing.
It is very much a tacit threat. So Silky, if you're watching, you're very welcome to come on and give your point of view. Like I say, I'm trying to give a good faith interpretation of how you're coming at this, but it is a much bigger issue than I think you appreciate, because I completely reject the low resolution view, which is, you're only supporting this if you support brand, and I reject the granular view as well.
Yeah.
If it was low resolution, she'd have written as a private individual.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
Yes. Good
Exactly,
point.
yeah.
Yeah.
But she did it on it, I mean, it was clear what she was trying to achieve. And actually, you bring up a good point. I mean, one of you said that it was a sort of tacit threat, and it is. That reminds me. Do you remember years and years ago the petrol adverts for, I think it was Esso, and they did the tiger eyes.
Yep.
And the thing was, and for those of you who don't remember, but the Esso tiger eyes advert was, we are always watching. And if somebody's selling petrol in the area at a lower price, we will match that price, right? And I remember as a little kid, my mum saying, "Oh, that's really good because they're going to keep prices low." And I was like, "No, mum, that's not what they're doing. What they're doing is they're sending a message to every other petrol station.
Yeah.
If you lower your price, we will immediately match it and take away your competitive advantage.
Yeah.
So everybody, let's keep our prices high." It was tacit collusion,
Yes.
right? And they can't get away with adverts like that now because it's obvious that it was tacit collusion. This is tacit intimidation.
Yes.
And you know that it is, because if it wasn't, the government by now would have come out and said, we disavow this.
Yep.
Or they would have stripped her of her committee chair, or she would have been deselected as an MP, all of those things. And none of those things have happened. So this is clear, tacit intimidation.
Yep. And that's exactly what happened to us with YouTube, isn't it?
Oh, that's 100% what happened to us. Yeah. When we were kicked off, we were allowed back on because, just to give a small piece of context, we shared BBC footage of Black Lives Matter when they were smashing up London and beating up police.
Right.
But that was reported en masse for violent content. We replied saying, "Oh, hang on a minute, this is BBC."
The BBC content.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
so when they put it out, it's not violent. When you put it out, it is violent.
Yeah. Well, we get people who watch what we do all the time, and any video goes out that could be interpreted as something, they will get mass reported. YouTube came back and they said, "Oh yeah, sorry, whoops, we got it wrong. Please forgive us. These things happen," as they do in their little, pre-written replies.
Right.
But then the Welsh government lobbied YouTube to say, "Oh, but Voice of Wales are actually quite dangerous. They're a threat to modern day Wales. We need to keep them off the platform."
Yeah.
And they did.
Well, and that's why this is so important, right? Because we don't have a written constitution in this country.
No.
What we have is a series of parliamentary and social conventions that basically dictates how we are governed. And when those social and parliamentary conventions are changed, as they were over COVID, well, I say COVID, lockdowns. What that does is it changes the method by which we are governed and how we will be governed in the future.
Absolutely.
So this is really important. This woman has to go. She must.
She must go.
She must go.
And do you know what? I didn't want a written constitution ever, but now I think that the American model and their constitution as it came from the best of the British at the time who wrote it. I think that we now need. That down.
I would be very afraid of who writes that now.
Yes. Well,
because if it was written today, it would bake in, the white straight men are the worst of the worst and must be expunged from everything.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's got to be based on the American Constitution as was in 1776.
If I could get the guys from the 1800s to come back and write us a constitution, I'd do that.
Absolutely.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Right to bear arms. The right for free speech.
But you're right. Everything was brought in under lockdown. We were saying just before we started, things are brought in and used for other means. We're seeing things that were brought in to enforce lockdown, things like cash. Now all of a sudden businesses are starting to say, "Well, I'm not going to take any cash anymore." And all that came in under lockdown, and now this is setting people in that mindset.
Now a convention. It's now that's how we work. And that's dangerous in a country that doesn't have a written constitution.
Absolutely.
So I don't know what you can do on this. I think you should write to your MP. I think you should kick up a stink. I don't think you should let this one drop. I did find a where is it? I found a change.org thing, which is a petition to suspend Caroline Dinenage from the UK Parliament. It's new. It hasn't got many people yet, but I would urge people to do whatever they can. Sign this, write to your MP, whatever you can do. But this woman has to go.
Yes, actually, that's a good one, because if she's suspended for 14 days or 10 days and more, then there can be a local ballot.
Right.
So that's a good one. 14 days.
Yeah.
But they won't do because she's on their side.
Sadly, how it works.
I'm afraid so.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, why not visit our website where you can get the podcast live, full, uncensored and for free from 1 o'clock UK time every weekday. And while you're there, for as little as £5 a month, you can access all of our paywalled premium content, such as my colleague Stelios' philosophy series Symposium, where in this episode, it's a two-parter, he talks to Carl and Bo about Machiavelli's discourses on Livy. And if you'd like to follow Stelios and what he's putting out on Twitter, you can follow him at Panayotu90st on Twitter, and the rest of us over at LotusEaters_com. Until next time, goodbye.